Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. Before we discuss campaign finance reform, I need to inform you that as of 6 a.m. this morning, you are the subject of an FBI criminal investigation for campaign finance fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino's words hit the House Oversight Committee hearing room like a flashbang grenade. No warning, no build-up, just detonation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez froze mid-gesture. Her fingers still pointed at the witness table where she'd been about to grill another witness about corporate dark money and politics. The irony was about to become crushing. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed, then opened again. No sound came out. The hearing room packed with reporters, cameras, congressional staff, and political observers erupted into absolute chaos. Reporters were shouting questions. Camera operators scrambled for better angles. Congressional aides frantically texted their bosses. Twitter was probably melting down already. What? AOC finally managed her voice cracking on the single syllable. The confident, fiery tone she'd carried into the hearing had vanished completely. This is outrageous. Mr. Chairman, I demand. Ma'am. Bongino interrupted his voice, carrying the flat professional authority of a cop who'd done this 1,000 times. You have the right to have legal counsel present during questioning. You have the right to decline to answer questions that might incriminate you under the Fifth Amendment. Do you understand these rights as I've explained them? Chairman James Comer was banging his gavel, trying unsuccessfully to restore order. Democrats were shouting over each other. Republicans leaned forward with expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed satisfaction. CSPAN's cameras were capturing every millisecond. You're reading me my rights. AOC's voice rose in octave indignation, mixing with something that looked an awful lot like fear. This is political persecution. This is exactly the kind of Congresswoman Bongino cut through her protest like a knife through butter. On March 15, 2018, you received a wire transfer of $47 from an entity called New Dawn Consulting LLC. This company was registered in Delaware 23 days before that transfer. It has no website, no office, no employees, and no business operations. It exists solely on paper. He opened a red folder stamped with FBI evidence across the top and pulled out a bank record. The document appeared on screens throughout the hearing room. That $47 was deposited into your personal checking account at Amalgamated Bank in New York. Not your campaign account, your personal account. 22 days later, you transferred $43 from your personal account to your campaign account and reported it as a personal loan to campaign. But it wasn't your money. Was it? It was someone else's money laundered through a shell company, then funneled into your campaign to circumvent campaign finance limits. He pulled out another document. A corporate registration form. FBI forensic accountants traced New Dawn Consulting LLC through two intermediary shell companies back to a dark money network operated by the same entities you spent your entire congressional career denouncing. The same corporate interests you claim to fight against. They were funding you illegally through hidden channels. And you knew it. AOC's face had gone pale. Her chief of staff, sitting behind her, was frantically whispering something in her ear. Her communications director was typing furiously on her phone. Her lawyer, when had he arrived, was trying to get her attention, making urgent hand gestures that clearly meant, stop talking. But AOC couldn't stop herself. You're claiming I took corporate money. That's a lie. My campaign is funded by the people, by grassroots donors, by working families who believe in ma'am. Bongino interrupted again, and this time his voice carried an edge of something cold. Between March 2018 and November 2024, your various campaigns and associated political committees received $4.3 million in contributions that FBI Financial Forensics has determined were fraudulent. Fake donors, stolen identities, money laundering, dark money disguised as small-dollar grassroots contributions. He pulled out a photograph and held it up. This is Margaret Chen, age 87, a dementia patient at a nursing home in Queens. According to your campaign finance reports filed with the FEC, Mrs. Chen donated the maximum allowable amount, $2,800, to your 2020 re-election campaign. But Mrs. Chen can't remember her own daughter's name. Congresswoman, she didn't make that donation. Someone stole her identity and used it to funnel illegal money into your campaign. That's identity theft. That's wire fraud. That's a federal crime. The photograph remained on the screens. An elderly Asian woman with white hair smiling vacantly at the camera, clearly suffering from advanced dementia. Mrs. Chen is one of 847 donors we've identified whose names, addresses, and identities were used without their knowledge or consent to make contributions to your campaigns. 847 victims of identity theft. 847 federal crimes. And the money didn't come from them. It came from somewhere else. Sources you were legally required to disclose, but deliberately concealed. Bongino closed the folder with a sharp snap. You ran for office promising to get money out of politics, and you built your brand on being different. On rejecting corporate money. On representing working people. On fighting corruption. But the FBI has evidence that you did exactly what you claimed to oppose. You took dirty money. You laundered it through fake donors. You lied to the Federal Election Commission. You committed fraud. Systematic, deliberate, comprehensive fraud. He leaned forward slightly. So, when you ask this committee to reform campaign finance laws, Congresswoman, I'd suggest you're asking the wrong question. The question Americans should be asking is, how did the bartender from the Bronx become a millionaire by breaking the very laws she claims to champion? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sat frozen in her chair, her carefully cultivated image of righteous populism cracking apart in real time. She'd walked into this hearing thinking she was the prosecutor. She'd had no idea she was actually the defendant. You're going to need a lawyer. Congresswoman, Unino said matter-of-factly. A good one. A very good one. Because what I just described is only the campaign finance fraud. We haven't even discussed the tax evasion yet, or the insider trading, or the obstruction of justice, or the Mr. Chairman. AOC's lawyer was on his feet now, his voice urgent. I need to confer with my client immediately. I request an immediate recess. Denied. Chairman Comer said, his gavel coming down hard. Deputy Director Bongino was invited to testify about FBI investigations into campaign finance violations. He's testifying. Representative Ocasio-Cortez chose to participate in this hearing. She'll hear what he has to say. Comer looked at Bongino with something resembling respect. Deputy Director, please continue. I believe you mentioned tax evasion. Dan Bongino smiled the cold, professional smile of a cop who'd just gotten everything he needed on record. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did, and this is going to take a while. He had 7 more folders on the table in front of him. All of them had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's name on them. Bongino opened his second folder with the deliberate precision of a prosecutor building a case brick by brick. 25 years in law enforcement. NYPD Secret Service FBI had taught him that how you presented evidence mattered almost as much as the evidence itself. Let's start with your 2018 primary campaign, Congresswoman, because that's where this all began. That's where you learned how easy it is to cheat. He pulled out a thick stack of printouts. Hundreds of pages of ACTBL Blue donation records. Act Blue is the primary fundraising platform for Democratic candidates. Small donors make contributions online. Act Blue processes them and the money flows to campaigns. It's supposed to be transparent. Every donor's name, address, occupation, and employer must be reported to the FEC. That's federal law. Bongino spread several pages across the table. Your 2018 primary campaign reported raising $194,000 from small donors, individuals contributing less than $200 each. Very impressive for a first-time candidate with no name recognition. The story you told was compelling, working people pooling their limited resources powering a grassroots revolution. The media loved it. You won that primary by just 4,000 votes. That small dollar money made the difference. He looked up at AOC. Except it wasn't real. Bongino pulled out a map of New York's 14th congressional district with hundreds of red dots marked on it. FBI forensic accountants analyzed every single donation to your 2018 primary campaign. We found some interesting patterns. 127 donations totaling $22 or $450 came from addresses that don't exist. Empty lots, abandoned buildings, addresses that were never valid. But someone used those addresses to make donations in the names of real people who live elsewhere. He pulled out a specific example. Jose Ramirez, occupation listed as construction worker, address listed as 1847 Webster Avenue, Bronx. That address is an empty lot. Has been for 6 years. But according to your FEC filings, Jose donated $175 to your campaign through Act Blue on April 3, 2018. Bongino pulled out another document. We found the real Jose Ramirez. He lives in New Jersey. He's never heard of you. He didn't donate to your campaign. He's never even been to that address in the Bronx. Someone stole his name, invented an address, and used his identity to make a fraudulent contribution. He spread out more pages. We found 127 donors like Jose. Real people whose identities were stolen, paired with fake addresses used to funnel money into your campaign while circumventing contribution limits and concealing the true source of the funds. AOC's hands were gripping the edge of the table. Her lawyer was writing frantically on a legal pad. But that's just the beginning. Bongino continued. The real pattern emerged when we analyzed the donation times and amounts. On June 12, 2018, between 2:17 a.m. and 3:42 a.m. in the middle of the night, your campaign received 73 donations through Act Blue, 73 separate people. All waking up in the middle of the night. All deciding to donate to your campaign within an 85-minute window. He let that sink in. The FBI interviewed 41 of those donors. None of them made donations at 2 a.m. In fact, 38 of them said they never donated to your campaign at all. Their names and information were used without their knowledge. That's identity theft. That's wire fraud. Bongino pulled out a forensic banking analysis charts showing money flows. So, we traced where the money actually came from. The credit card numbers used for these donations when we subpoenaed the records all traced back to a series of prepaid debit cards purchased in bulk from a single source. Those cards were loaded with funds from wire transfers originating from You'll Love This New Dawn Consulting LLC. The same shell company that later paid you $47 directly. He pulled out corporate registration documents. New Dawn Consulting LLC was registered on February 21, 2018 in Delaware. The registered agent is a company that specializes in creating anonymous corporate entities. The address is a mail rop. There are no employees, no office space, no legitimate business operations. It exists solely to move money in ways that hide the original source. Bongino's voice took on a harder edge. FBI forensic accountants traced New Dawn Consulting through a web of shell companies. It's what we do, Congresswoman. We're very good at following money. And we found the ultimate source. The money originated from a dark money network operated by corporate interests and wealthy individuals who wanted to influence the 2018 primary elections in several districts. They needed progressive candidates who would appear grassroots but who would be controllable once elected. Candidates who owed them. Candidates who could be compromised. He pulled out a bank record showing a wire transfer. On February 28, 2018, 1 week after New Dawn Consulting was created, the company received a wire transfer of $2.40 for an entity called Freedom Alliance Strategies. That entity received money from a Cayman Islands trust. The Cayman Trust is controlled by shell companies registered in Panama. And at the end of that chain, after layers designed specifically to conceal the source, the money originated from a network of tech industry executives, cryptocurrency investors, and financial firms who wanted candidates in Congress who would oppose certain regulations while appearing to support progressive policies. Bongino looked directly at AOC. You weren't chosen because of your platform, Congresswoman. You were chosen because you were controllable, young, charismatic, media savvy, and most importantly, willing to look the other way when illegal money flowed into your campaign as long as it helped you win. That's a lie. AOC finally found her voice. I've never taken corporate money. Every dollar I've raised came from working people. This is a smear campaign designed to Bongino interrupted his voice, cutting through her protest. I haven't even gotten to the good part yet. He pulled out a USB drive and handed it to the committee's technical staff. This drive contains audio recordings from a cooperating witness, your former campaign manager, who has provided testimony to the FBI in exchange for immunity from prosecution. These recordings are from staff meetings during your 2018 campaign. A moment later, audio began playing through the hearing room speakers. AOC's voice was unmistakable. Audio transcript June 2018. AOC, how much did we raise yesterday? Campaign Manager 38.000 on Act Blue. But AOC. But what? Campaign Manager. You know what? The same as before. AOC. I don't want to know the details. I just want to know we have enough to win. Do we have enough, Campaign Manager? If the stream keeps flowing. Yes. AOC. Then keep it flowing. I don't care how. Just keep it flowing. Campaign Manager. Alex. If this ever comes out. AOC. It won't. Nobody looks that closely at small dollar donations. That's the beauty of Act Blue. It's all $27 and $50 contributions. No one scrutinizes that. The media loves the grassroots story. Just keep the stream flowing. The audio stopped. The hearing room was dead silent. AOC's face had gone completely white. Her lawyer had his head in his hands. I don't care how. Just keep it flowing. Bongino repeated. That's you, Congresswoman. On June 14, 2018, instructing your campaign manager to continue accepting fraudulent donations. You knew the money was dirty. You knew the donors were fake. You didn't care because you wanted to win. He pulled out more documents. And it didn't stop with the 2018 primary. Your 2018 general election campaign received an additional $340 in fraudulent contributions. Your 2000 Revel campaign received $892. Your 2022 campaign received $1.1 million. Your 2024 campaign received $1.9 million. Over 6 years. Across 4 election cycles. Your campaigns received $4.3 million in illegal contributions laundered through fake donors, stolen identities, and shell companies. He pulled out a comprehensive chart showing all the fraudulent donations organized by election cycle with dates, amounts, and methods clearly labeled. That's not a mistake, Congresswoman. That's not an oversight. That's not a bookkeeping error. That's systematic, deliberate, ongoing criminal fraud. You built your entire political career on illegal money while telling America you were rejecting corporate corruption. You were the corruption. Bongino leaned back in his chair. The FBI has interviewed 847 individuals whose identities were used without their knowledge to make fraudulent contributions to your campaigns. 800,800 of identity theft. 847 counts of wire fraud. Every single one is a federal felony carrying up to 20 years in prison. He let that number hang in the air. But you know what the most interesting part is? The real Jose Ramirez, the construction worker whose identity was stolen for that $175 donation. He's actually a Trump supporter. He voted against you twice and his stolen identity was used to help fund your campaign. The irony is almost poetic. Bongino closed the folder. You committed fraud, Congresswoman. Comprehensive, systematic, sustained fraud across 6 years and 4 election cycles. You violated federal campaign finance laws. 800 thieves. Times. You violated wire fraud statutes 847 times. You lied to the Federal Election Commission repeatedly. And you did it all while building a brand as someone who was different. Someone who was fighting corruption. He pulled out the next folder. But that's just the campaign finance side. Should we talk about the tax evasion now, or would you like to invoke your Fifth Amendment rights first? AOC sat frozen. Her political career disintegrating in real time on national television. Her lawyer leaned forward and whispered urgently in her ear. Don't say another word, not another word, but the damage was done. The audio recording had been played. The evidence had been presented. And every major news network was running with it. Dan Bongino had 7 more folders to go. Let's talk about shell companies. Congresswoman, Bongino said, opening his 3rd folder. Because you didn't just take illegal campaign contributions. You also set up your own network of entities to move money around in ways that concealed its origins and purposes. And then you used those entities to enrich yourself personally. He pulled out a series of corporate formation documents. Between 2017 and 2024, you and your associates created 7 separate limited liability companies. 7 entities, all with innocuous names, all registered in states with minimal disclosure requirements, all designed to obscure financial relationships and money flows. Bongino laid out the documents one by one, each stamped with state registration seals. 1. New Dawn Consulting LLC. Registered February 2018, Delaware. 2. Courage to Change PSC. Registered March 2018, DC. 3. Progressive Solutions Group LLC. Registered June 2018. Wyoming 4. Brooklyn Forward Strategies LLC registered November 2018. Delaware 5. Justice and Opportunity Fund registered February 2020. DC 6. Working Families Alliance LLC registered August 20 to 20. Nevada 7. Green Future Consulting Group LLC registered January 2020. 22. Delaware. He looked up at AOC. 7 entities. And according to Delaware, Wyoming and Nevada corporate records, none of which require disclosure of actual ownership. The registered agents are all mail drop services. No real offices. No real employees. Just paper entities that exist to move money. Bongino pulled out bank records. Thick stacks of them. But the FBI has subpoena power. Congresswoman, we can pierce corporate veils. We can trace beneficial ownership. We can follow money through any number of shells. And when we subpoenaed the bank records for these 7 entities, we found something very interesting. He pulled out a comprehensive flowchart showing money moving between various accounts. You personally control all 7 entities. You're the beneficial owner. Your signature is on the bank accounts. Your social security number is on the tax forms. Or at least it should have been. But here's the interesting part. Only 3 of these entities actually filed tax returns. The other 4, no tax filings at all. They're ghost companies that moved millions of dollars while reporting nothing to the IRS. He pointed to specific transactions on the chart. Let me walk you through how the scheme worked. Step 1. Donors. Often wealthy individuals who've already maxed out their direct contributions to your campaigns. Make contributions to Courage to Change PAC. This is your leadership PAC, which has higher contribution limits than candidate campaigns. Step 2. Courage to Change. PAC pays consulting fees to Progressive Solutions Group LLC. Between 2018 and 2024, your PAC paid this LLC $2.7 million for strategic consulting communication services and organizing support. Step 3. Progressive Solutions Group LLC pays subcontractor fees to Brooklyn Forward Strategies LLC and Green Future Consulting Group LLC. Another $1.9 million moved through these entities for specialized services. Step 4. These LLCs then pay management fees and consulting fees to various individuals, including you, your boyfriend, Riley Roberts, your family members, and close associates. But these payments are structured to avoid reporting thresholds and are disguised as legitimate business expenses. Bongino pulled out specific bank records showing wire transfers. For example, on August 15, 2020, Brooklyn Forward Strategies LLC paid you $47 for strategic consulting services. This payment was reported to the IRS as business income. But here's the problem. Brooklyn Forward Strategies had no clients except your own political committees. It wasn't providing services to anyone else. It existed solely to move money from your PAC into your personal accounts while disguising political contributions as business income. He pulled out more records. Between 2018 and 2024, these shell companies paid you directly $847 in consulting fees, $243 in speaking fees, $178 in advisory services, $92 in media production services. Total $1.36.000 in payments from entities that you controlled. Funded by your political committees. In structure. Ed to circumvent campaign finance laws and tax regulations. AOC's lawyer was frantically taking notes. But his face had the expression of someone watching a train wreck in slow motion. But wait, Bongino continued. It gets better. Your boyfriend Riley Roberts, does he have any particular expertise in political communications or campaign strategy? He didn't wait for an answer. According to his LinkedIn profile, he's a web developer and marketing consultant. Not exactly a political strategist. Yet, between 2019 and 2024, Riley Roberts received $647 from your shell company network for digital strategy and technology consulting services. Bongino pulled out Riley's bank records. We interviewed Mr. Roberts. Initially, he claimed he provided legitimate services. Then we showed him the evidence. Emails, calendars, work product, or rather the complete absence of work product. He couldn't provide a single deliverable. No strategy documents. No campaign plans. No technology recommendations. Nothing. Eventually, He admitted that the payments were compensation for supporting your career and making sacrifices to be with you while you were in Congress. He pulled out a deposition transcript. Here's what Riley Roberts told FBI agents under oath. Alex said the LLCs were a normal way for members of Congress to pay their partners and family members. She said, everyone does it. She said it was legal as long as we reported the income. I trusted her. Bongino looked at AOC. Your boyfriend trusted you, and you used him as part of a scheme to funnel political money into personal income. That's not love, Congresswoman. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. He pulled out more bank records showing payments to AOC's family members. Your mother, Blanca Ocasio-Cortez, received $127 from Progressive Solutions Group LLC between 2019 and 2023 for community outreach coordination. Your brother Gabriel received $83 for constituent services support. Neither of them had any qualifications for these roles. Neither could provide any evidence of work performed. These were disguised gifts paid for with political money and structured to avoid gift tax reporting requirements. Bongino leaned forward. So, let's add it up. Between 2018 and 2024, you moved approximately $2.1 million from your political committees through this shell company network. And approximately $2 million of that ultimately went to you and your immediate family members. You converted political donations which have strict legal limitations into personal income through a maze of LLCs designed specifically to obscure the transactions. He pulled out more documents. And here's where the tax evasion comes in. You reported some of this income on your tax returns. The payments that were too large or too visible to hide. But you deliberately underreported approximately $1.4 million in income that flowed through these entities. Money that should have been reported as either campaign contributions, which would be illegal because they exceeded limits, or as personal income, which would have triggered substantial tax liability. Bongino pulled out IRS Form 1040's AOC's tax returns for 2018 through 2024. Let's look at your 2020 tax return. You reported $174 in congressional salary. You reported $42 in book advance income. You reported $17 in speaking fees. Total reported income $233,000. But according to bank records, you actually received $562 that year, including $329 that flowed through your LLC network and was never reported to the IRS. He pulled out a comprehensive spreadsheet showing year-by-year discrepancies. Over 6 years, the FBI calculates you underreported $1.387.000 in taxable income. At your tax bracket, that represents approximately $470 in evaded federal income taxes plus penalties and interest. That's tax evasion, Congresswoman. That's a federal crime under 26 U.S.C. Section 7201, carrying up to 5 years in prison per year of violation. AOC's hands were shaking now. Her face had gone from pale to almost gray. But here's my favorite part. Bongino said, pulling out property records. In November 2021, you purchased a condominium in Washington, D.C. for $1.80 $8 million. A very nice place in Navy Yard. Great views. High-end finishes. Very expensive for someone whose official salary is $174 a year and who claimed to have $7 in savings when first elected to Congress. He pulled out mortgage documents. You put down $400 cash, nearly a quarter of the purchase price. Your mortgage application claimed you had savings from book royalties, speaking fees, and family gifts. But we traced the actual source of that down payment. Want to guess where it came from? He answered his own question. Brooklyn Forward Strategies LLC transferred $427 to your personal checking account in October 2021. 3 weeks later, you made the down payment on your condo. The money moved political PAC, shell company, your account, real estate. That's money laundering, Congresswoman. That's 18 U.S.C. Section 1956. That's up to 20 years in prison. Bongino closed the folder with a definitive snap. You created a network of shell companies to move political money into your personal accounts while avoiding campaign finance limits, tax reporting requirements, and financial disclosure laws. You enriched yourself and your family to the tune of more than $2 million. You evaded nearly $500,000 in taxes. You laundered money to buy real estate. And you did it all while telling America you were a working-class champion fighting against the rich and powerful. He pulled out the next folder. But I'm not done yet. Should we discuss the insider trading now, because that's when things get really interesting. AOC looked like she might physically collapse. Her lawyer had given up taking notes and was just staring at the table. Chairman Comer banged his gavel. I think we need a 15-minute recess. Deputy Director, will you be ready to continue? Oh, I'll be ready, Mr. Chairman, Bongino said with that cold cop smile. I've got 4 more folders to go. After the recess, Bongino returned to the witness table with a new folder. This one noticeably thicker than the previous ones. AOC had changed seats. Her lawyer now positioned directly beside her, one hand on her arm as if physically restraining her from speaking. Let's talk about your stock trading, Congresswoman. Bongino began, because this is where your greed got really obvious. He opened the folder to reveal brokerage statements. Hundreds of pages of them. Members of Congress have access to classified briefings, confidential information, and advanced knowledge of policy decisions that can move markets. This creates obvious opportunities for insider trading. That's why the Stock Act, the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, was passed in 2012. It explicitly prohibits members of Congress from using non-public information for personal financial gain. Bongino pulled out AOC's financial disclosure forms required by House ethics rules. According to your financial disclosures, when you were first elected in 2018, you reported 0 stock holdings. You told the New York Times you had about $7 in savings and student loan debt. You positioned yourself as someone who couldn't afford to own stocks. A working-class champion who didn't participate in Wall Street's game. He pulled out brokerage statements. But that was a lie. In January 2019, your first month in Congress, you opened a brokerage account at Arrayed under your own name and social security number. Your initial deposit was $15. Where did that money come from? According to bank records, it was transferred from Brooklyn Forward Strategies LLC, one of your shell companies. Bongino spread out trading records across the table. And then you started trading aggressively. Between January 2019 and November 2024, you executed 347 stock trades, purchases, sales, options, contracts. The total value of securities traded exceeded $2.8 million for someone who claimed she couldn't afford to own stocks. He pulled out a timeline chart showing trades alongside her committee assignments and classified briefings. You serve on the House Financial Services Committee and the House Oversight Committee. Both positions give you access to confidential information about upcoming regulatory decisions, government investigations, economic policy changes, and corporate enforcement actions. Information that isn't public yet. Information that can move markets. Bongino pointed to specific trades. Let's look at some examples. February 12, 2020. You attended a classified briefing on COVID-19 pandemic risks and potential economic impacts. This was before the general public understood the severity of the virus. The briefing included information about anticipated lockdowns, supply chain disruptions, and pharmaceutical demand. February 14, 2020. 2 days later, you executed the following trades. Purchased $47 in Pfizer call options. Purchased $35 in Magna call options. Sold short $42 in airline stocks. Sold short $38.000 in commercial real estate. Over the next 6 weeks, as the pandemic became public, markets crashed and pharmaceutical companies surged. These trades generated $400.000 in profits, all based on information you learned in a classified congressional briefing. He pulled out more trading records. June 8, 2021, you attended a Financial Services Committee hearing closed to the public about upcoming cryptocurrency regulations. The SEC and Treasury Department officials briefed the committee that major enforcement actions against crypto exchanges were coming. June 10, 2021, 2 days later, you sold short $83 in Coinbase stock and purchased put options on several cryptocurrency-related stocks. June 23, 2021, the SEC announced enforcement actions. Crypto markets crashed. Your trades generated $124 in profits. Bongino continued through more examples, each following the same pattern. September 2021, Classified briefing on pharmaceutical pricing regulations. Shorting pharmaceutical stocks. Profit $67. March 2022. Private briefing on banking sector vulnerabilities. Shorting regional bank stocks months before Silicon Valley Bank collapse. Profit $93. July 2023. Confidential information about tech sector antitrust investigations. Strategic tech stock trades. Profit $156. November 2023. Advanced knowledge of climate policy announcements. Green energy stock purchases. Profit $88. He pulled out a comprehensive spreadsheet. FBI forensic analysis of your trading patterns shows that 73% of your trades occurred within 2 weeks of classified briefings or confidential committee sessions. The average return on your trades was 300% higher than market averages. That's not luck, Congresswoman. That's not investment skill. That's insider trading. Bongino pulled out email communications obtained through FBI warrants. And we have the evidence that proves you knew exactly what you were doing. These are emails between you and your boyfriend Riley Roberts, who was executing many of these trades for you using his own brokerage account to avoid disclosure requirements. He read from the emails. February 13, 2020. Email from AOC to Riley Roberts. Got some info from the CO briefing today. This is going to be bigger than anyone realizes. Buy pharma calls. Sell airlines and commercial real estate. Do it tomorrow. Don't wait. June 9, 2021. Email from AOC to Riley Roberts. The crypto crackdown is coming. They briefed us today. It's going to be bad for the exchanges. Short Coinbase heavy. This is going to print money. September 15, 2021. Email from AOC to Riley Roberts. Pharma pricing legislation is coming. They're going to get hammered. Load up on puts. Trust me on this. Bongino looked up from the emails. Trust me on this. You knew you explicitly told your boyfriend to trade on confidential information you learned in classified congressional briefings. That's textbook insider trading under Section 10B of the Securities Exchange Act and Rule 10b-5. That's also a violation of the Stock Act. And each violation carries up to 20 years in prison and millions in fines. He pulled out Riley Roberts' brokerage statements. And because you used Riley's account for many of these trades to avoid disclosure requirements on your own financial disclosures. You also committed ethics violations and potentially obstructed justice by deliberately circumventing congressional reporting requirements. Bongino pulled out profit calculations between January 2019 and November 2024. Trades executed by you and Riley Roberts using confidential congressional information generated approximately $1.4 million in profits. $14 million gained by exploiting your position as a member of Congress to trade on non-public information. You profited from the COVID pandemic. You profited from the cryptocurrency collapse. You profited from bank failures. You made money on the suffering of others using information you only had because of your elected position. He pulled out a comparison chart. And here's the really damning part. Before you entered Congress, Riley Roberts' investment account had an average annual return of 4.2%. Basically matching the S&P 500. After you entered Congress and started feeding him information from classified briefings, his average annual return jumped to 47%. 47% annual returns. That's not possible without insider information. Bongino leaned back in his chair. The SEC has opened a parallel civil enforcement investigation. But the FBI's criminal investigation focuses on 23 specific trades that we can prove through emails, trading records, and calendar analysis were directly based on confidential information you learned in your capacity as a member of Congress and then used for personal financial gain. He pulled out indictment drafts. 23 counts of insider trading. 23 counts of securities fraud, each carrying up to 20 years in prison. You could be sentenced to 460 years if the sentences run consecutively. AOC was now visibly shaking. Her lawyer had his head down, scribbling furiously, probably calculating sentencing guidelines. But I'm not done yet, Bongino said, pulling out another folder. Because you didn't just commit insider trading, you also tried to cover it up. And that's where the obstruction charges come in. He pulled out screenshots of deleted emails. In August 2024, when you learned that the FBI had opened an investigation into congressional stock trading, you attempted to destroy evidence. You deleted 47,128 emails from your congressional email account. You had Riley delete emails from his personal accounts. You wiped your phones. You destroyed documents. Bongino pulled out forensic recovery reports. But the FBI has very good forensic specialists. Congresswoman, we recovered those deleted emails. We recovered the communications where you explicitly told Riley to trade on classified information. We recovered everything. He pulled out a particularly damning email chain. This email is from August 23, 2024, 2 weeks after you learned about the FBI investigation sent from your personal Gmail to Riley. We have a serious problem. The FBI is looking at congressional stock trades. Delete everything. Every email where we discussed trades after my briefings. Wipe your account. Factory. Reset your phone. Get rid of any records of the trades if possible. We need to make this go away before it destroys everything we've built. Bongino looked directly at AOC. That's obstruction of justice. Congresswoman, that's destruction of evidence. That's conspiracy to obstruct a federal investigation. Each of those is a separate federal crime carrying up to 20 years in prison. He closed the folder. You didn't just commit insider trading. You got caught and then you tried to cover it up. You destroyed evidence. You deleted communications. You attempted to obstruct a federal investigation. And in doing so, you turned what might have been civil securities violations into serious federal felonies. Chairman Comer was shaking his head slowly, looking genuinely stunned by the depth of the allegations. Deputy Director Comer said, "Is there more?" "Yes, Mr. Chairman," Bongino replied. "We still need to discuss the witness tampering, the false statements to federal investigators, and the conspiracy charges. This is going to take all day." He had 4 more folders. AOC looked like she might vomit. "Let's talk about what happens when criminals get caught," Bongo said, opening his 5th folder. "Most people panic. They make bad decisions. They try to cover up their crimes. And in doing so, they usually make things much worse for themselves." He pulled out a timeline document. On August 14, 2024, the Wall Street Journal published an investigative report about suspicious stock trading patterns by several members of Congress. You weren't named specifically in the article, but the report described trading patterns that matched your activity almost perfectly. 3 days later, the FBI opened a formal investigation. Bongino pulled out phone records. On August 19, 2024, 2 days after the FBI investigation began, you made 47 phone calls. 47 calls in 1 day to your boyfriend Riley, to your chief of staff, to your campaign manager, to your lawyer, to several current and former staff members who had knowledge of your financial activities. He pulled out transcripts of phone conversations obtained through court-authorized wiretaps. The FBI had already begun surveillance of your phone communications based on probable cause that you were engaged in securities fraud. We have recordings of many of these calls. Let me share some highlights. He pulled out specific transcripts. August 19, 2024, 3:47 p.m. phone call from AOC to Riley Roberts. "AOC, they're investigating congressional stock trades. The FBI, this could destroy us. Riley, what do we do?" "AOC, we need to delete everything. Every email where I told you about briefings before you made trades. Every text message, everything on Signal. Wipe it all." "Riley, Alex, that's AOC. I don't care if it looks suspicious. It's better than them having the evidence. Delete it all today, right now." Bino looked up. "That's conspiracy to obstruct justice. That's destruction of evidence. And it's all on tape." He pulled out more transcripts. August 20th, 2024, 10:23 a.m. Phone call from AOC to her chief of staff. "AOC, the trading thing is a problem. We need to get ahead of it." Chief of staff, "What do you want me to do?" "AOC, the emails where I forwarded briefing info. We need to make those disappear. Can you access my congressional email server?" Chief of staff, "I can delete them from your inbox. But it has backups." "AOC, then delete them everywhere. Tell it it's a security precaution. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. Just make those emails disappear." Bongino continued, "Your chief of staff followed your instructions. He accessed the House email servers and deleted 47,128 emails from your congressional account. He told the IT department it was a routine security maintenance operation. But the IT staff found it suspicious and reported it to the House Inspector General. He pulled out IT logs showing the mass deletion. The Inspector General immediately notified the FBI. We obtained emergency preservation orders for all your electronic communications. We seized backup servers. We recovered every deleted email, and in doing so we found not just evidence of insider trading but evidence of your attempts to destroy that evidence. Bongino pulled out more phone transcripts. But you didn't stop there. You also began contacting former staff members who might be potential witnesses against you. He pulled out a particularly damning transcript. August 23, Road, 2024, 8:17 p.m. phone call from AOC to former campaign staffer Jessica Martinez. AOC: Hey Jess, it's Alex. I wanted to check in with you. Jessica: Hi, it's been a while. What's up? AOC: I heard the FBI might be asking questions about campaign stuff from 2018. If they contact you, I want you to know you don't have to talk to them. Jessica: Why would they ask me about AOC? Look, there were some irregularities with Act Blue donations back then. I didn't know about them at the time. I had no idea what was happening. If they ask you if I knew about the fake donors, the answer is I didn't know. Okay, I found out later just like everyone else. Jessica: But Alex, you told me to AOC. I never told you to do anything. Whatever happened was not my idea. You need to remember that. If you say I knew, it makes you look complicit. We both need to say we didn't know. That protects both of us. Jessica: This sounds like you're asking me to lie. AOC: I'm asking you to remember things correctly. There's a difference. Bongino looked up from the transcript. That's witness tampering. That's obstruction of justice. That's suborning perjury. And it's all recorded because Jessica Martinez immediately called the FBI after that conversation and agreed to cooperate with the investigation. She wore a wire for every subsequent conversation with you. He pulled out more recordings. After that phone call, you contacted 9 other current and former staff members with similar messages. 8 of them reported your contacts to the FBI. 6 agreed to cooperate as witnesses. 1 of them recorded additional conversations on their phone. Bongino pulled out a recorded conversation transcript. This is from a meeting you held with 3 staff members at your DC condo on August 27, 2024. One of the attendees was recording on their phone AOC. Listen, if the FBI comes around asking questions, this is what you need to remember. I never explicitly told anyone to use fake donor names. I never explicitly instructed anyone to funnel dark money through Act Blue. If people made mistakes with donations, that was their initiative, not mine. DA for one, but you literally said to keep the money flowing. AOC: I said to keep fundraising. That's different from instructing specific illegal activity. The distinction matters legally. You need to understand that distinction. A TAF for 2. Alex: This sounds like you're asking us to coordinate stories. AOC: I'm asking us to accurately remember what happened. There's a difference between coordination and accurate memory. We all need to have accurate memories about what I did and didn't know. Bongino shook his head. That's conspiracy to obstruct justice. That's coordinating false testimony. And it was all recorded. He pulled out more evidence. But the cover-up didn't stop with witness tampering. You also made false statements to federal investigators when they interviewed you. He pulled out FBI interview reports. FD 302 forms documenting witness interviews. On September 15, 2024, FBI agents attempted to interview you voluntarily. Your lawyer was present. The agents advised you that you were not under arrest, but that lying to federal agents is a crime under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001. You agreed to answer questions. Bongino pulled out the interview transcript. The agents asked you, did you ever provide Riley Roberts with information from classified congressional briefings that he then used to execute stock trades? Your answer? No, never. Riley manages his own investments. I don't tell him what to trade. That was a lie. We have emails where you explicitly told him to make specific trades based on classified information. He pulled out more questions and answers. The agents asked, did you ever use information from congressional briefings to make personal investment decisions? Your answer? I don't really trade stocks. I have a small brokerage account, but I rarely use it. That was a lie. You executed 3,007 trades totaling $2.8 million in volume. The agents asked, Have you ever deleted any emails or communications that might be relevant to this investigation? Your answer: no. All my emails are preserved in the congressional system. That was a lie. You had deleted 47,128 emails just 3 weeks earlier. Bongino counted on his fingers. 3 direct lies to federal agents in a single interview. Each one is a separate violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1001. Each one carries up to 5 years in prison. He pulled out additional evidence. And you also lied on your congressional financial disclosure forms. The forms you're required to file annually disclosing your income, assets, and liabilities. He spread out multiple years of financial disclosure forms. Your 2020 disclosure form listed your net worth as $47. But in reality, after accounting for unreported income from your LLC network and stock trading profits, your actual net worth was approximately $680. You underreported by $633. Your 2022 disclosure form listed no stock holdings, but you had an active brokerage account with $340 in securities holdings. Your 2024 disclosure form failed to report $2.1 million in real estate assets held through shell companies you controlled. Bongino pulled out a comprehensive analysis. Over 6 years of financial disclosure forms. You filed false information on 73 separate line items. Each false statement is a violation of the Ethics in Government Act. Each violation subjects you to criminal penalties. He closed the folder and looked directly at AOC. So, let's summarize what happened after you learned you were under investigation. You destroyed evidence, deleting 47,128 emails and instructing others to delete communications. You tampered with witnesses, contacting at least 9 current and former staff members and encouraging them to provide false testimony. You conspired to obstruct justice, coordinating stories with staff members about what you knew and didn't know. You lied to federal investigators, making at least 3 materially false statements during your FBI interview. You filed false financial disclosures concealing income, assets, and liabilities on required congressional ethics forms. And you did all of this because you knew you were guilty. You knew you'd committed campaign finance fraud. You knew you'd committed insider trading. You knew you'd evaded taxes. And you tried to cover it all up. Bongino leaned forward. But here's the thing about cover-ups. Congresswoman, they always make things worse. What might have been civil violations became criminal offenses. What might have resulted in fines became federal felonies. And what might have destroyed just your career is now going to send you to prison for a very long time. He pulled out the next folder. This one labeled indictment. The federal grand jury has returned a true bill. You've been indicted on 47 counts. 17 counts of wire fraud related to campaign finance violations. 9 counts of money laundering. 6 counts of tax evasion. 23 counts of securities fraud and insider trading. 12 counts of obstruction of justice. 7 counts of witness tampering. 3 counts of making false statements to federal investigators. 11 counts of ethics violations. And false financial disclosures. If convicted on all counts, you're facing up to 280 years in federal prison. The hearing room was dead silent. AOC had tears streaming down her face. Her lawyer looked shell-shocked. You'll be formally arraigned next week. Bongino continued. At that time, you'll enter a plea. The U.S. Attorney's Office has authorized me to inform you that they are willing to discuss a plea agreement if you choose to cooperate with ongoing investigations into other members of Congress who may have engaged in similar conduct. He closed the indictment folder. But if you choose to go to trial, the government is fully prepared to present this evidence to a jury. And based on what I've shown you today, I believe the jury will convict you on every count. Chairman Comer finally spoke, his voice somber. Representative Ocasio-Cortez, do you have anything to say? AOC's lawyer immediately responded. My client will be invoking her Fifth Amendment rights and declining to make any statements at this time. Very well, Kumare said. This hearing is adjourned. Deputy Director Bongino, thank you for your testimony. As the gavel came down, cameras captured AOC with her head in her hands. Her political career in ruins. Her freedom about to be taken away. The bartender from the Bronx had become a millionaire. And soon she would become a convicted felon. United States District Court, Southern District of New York, United States of America. Veer Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Defendant Indictment Case. Number 24 County Route 11847. KPF. The grand jury charges Count 1 conspiracy to commit wire fraud 18 U.S.C. Setter 1349 between approximately March 2018 and November 2024 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the defendant, and others known and unknown knowingly and willfully conspired to devise and execute a scheme to defraud the United States and obtain money and property by means of false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 1343. The object of the conspiracy was to solicit, accept, and conceal illegal campaign contributions through the use of fraudulent donor identities, shell companies, and straw donor schemes, thereby circumventing federal campaign finance laws and defrauding the Federal Election Commission and the United States Treasury. Counts 2 through 18. Wire fraud 18 U.S.C. Sakura 1343. 17 separate counts detailing specific wire transfers of fraudulent campaign contributions. Counts 19 through 27. Money laundering 18 U.S.C. Sector 1856. 9 counts detailing the laundering of illegal campaign contributions through shell companies, including New Dawn Consulting LLC, Progressive Solutions Group LLC Brooklyn, Forward Strategies LLC, and others. Counts 28 through 33. Tax evasion 26 U.S.C. FOS 7201 for the tax years 2019 through 2024. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez willfully attempted to evade and defeat federal income tax by failing to report income of approximately $1.7387.000 received through shell companies and illegal sources. B. Filing false tax returns that substantially understated her taxable income. C. Claiming false deductions for personal expenses disguised as business expenses. D. Using shell companies to conceal taxable income from the Internal Revenue Service. Total tax loss to the United States Treasury: $470, $384 plus interest and penalties. Counts 34 through 56. Securities, fraud, and insider trading. 15 U.S.C. Sector 78 JBB 17 CFR Key Pirate 240.1b 523 counts detailing specific instances of trading on material non-public information obtained through classified congressional briefings. Counts 57 through 68 Obstruction of Justice 18 U.S.C. Barrier funds beginning in approximately August 2024. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez knowingly engaged in conduct that destroyed, mutilated, concealed, covered up, falsified, and made false entries in records and documents with the intent to impair their integrity and availability for use in official proceedings. I specifically caused the deletion of 471,128 emails from congressional servers. C. Instructed co-conspirators to delete electronic communications relevant to federal investigations. D. Attempted to prevent the communication of information relating to federal crimes to federal law enforcement. Counts 69 through 75. Witness tampering 18 U.S.C. Paper 112-7 counts detailing specific attempts to influence, intimidate, or corruptly persuade witnesses with intent to influence their testimony in official proceedings. Counts 76 through 78. False statements 18 U.S.C. Order 101 on or about September 15, 2024 in the Southern District of New York. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a matter within the jurisdiction of the executive branch of the United States knowingly and willfully made materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements to federal law enforcement agents. Forfeit allegation. Upon conviction, the defendant shall forfeit to the United States 1 all property constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly or indirectly as a result of the offenses charged herein, including but not limited to real property located at D.C. condo address valued at approximately $1.800.000 or bank accounts containing approximately $847.00000 or securities holdings valued at approximately $340 or other assets totaling approximately $213. 2 Total forfeit amount $30 or $200. A true bill signed by grand jury 4-person signed by U.S. Attorney Southern District of New York October 15, 2024. Food Marshal. United States Courthouse, 40 Foley Square, New York, NY Alexandria. Ocasio-Cortez stood before Magistrate Judge Catherine Polk Fiala, wearing a navy blue suit, her signature large hoop earrings. Absent her hair pulled back in a severe bun. The transformation from media-savvy politician to criminal defendant was stark. Her legal team had grown substantially. Lead defense attorney Mark Duragos stood beside her, flanked by 3 other attorneys carrying boxes of legal documents. The prosecution table held assistant U.S. attorneys from the Southern District of New York's Public Corruption Unit. All rise. The bailiff announced as Judge Fail entered. The judge reviewed the indictment briefly, then looked at AOC. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, you've been indicted on 78 counts of federal crimes, including wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, securities fraud, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and making false statements. Do you understand the charges against you? Yes, Your Honor, AOC replied, her voice barely audible. How do you plead? Mark Garrigos stepped forward. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty to all charges. Very well. Now we need to address bail. The assistant U.S. attorney stood. Your Honor, the government requests that the defendant be remanded without bail. She presents a serious flight risk. She has access to significant financial resources that weren't disclosed in her financial statements. She has international contacts and she has already demonstrated a willingness to destroy evidence any tamper with witnesses when she believed she was under investigation. Garagos immediately objected. Your Honor, Representative Ocasio-Cortez is a sitting member of the United States Congress. She has deep ties to this community. She has surrendered her passport. She poses no flight risk whatsoever. Judge Fila considered for a moment. Miss Ocasio-Cortez, you are hereby released on a $500 bond secured by real property. You will surrender all passports immediately. You will be subject to electronic monitoring via GPS ankle bracelet. You are prohibited from leaving the Southern and Eastern Districts of New York without prior court approval. You are prohibited from contacting any witnesses in this case except through your attorneys. You are prohibited from accessing any electronic communications except through devices approved by pre-trial services that allow for monitoring. Any violation of these conditions will result in immediate revocation of bail and detention pending trial. She banged the gavel. Trial is set for March 3, 2025. Discovery deadlines will be provided by separate order. We're adjourned. As AOC left the courthouse, a crowd of reporters mobbed her on the courthouse steps. Her attorneys had prepared a brief statement. Representative Ocasio-Cortez maintains her innocence. These charges are politically motivated. She looks forward to her day in court where she will be vindicated. But the cameras caught something else: AOC's face as she climbed into the waiting car. The confident progressive firebrand was gone. In her place was a scared 35-year-old woman facing 280 years in federal prison. Monday, March 3, Road, 2025. United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Courtroom Room 443. The trial of United States versus Alexandria. Ocasio-Cortez began on a cold March morning with extraordinary security measures. Metal detectors had been installed outside the courtroom. U.S. Marshals screened every attendee. The judge had denied requests to live-stream the proceedings, but every major news organization had reporters inside. Judge Catherine Polk F.A. presided, a careful, methodical jurist known for running tight courtrooms. The jury had been selected after 2 weeks of vote. 7 women, 5 men, diverse in age and ethnicity, representing a true cross-section of New York. AOC sat at the defense table wearing a modest gray suit. Her long hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Gone was the progressive politician persona. The defense strategy was clear: present her as a young woman who'd made mistakes, not a criminal mastermind. The government may present its opening statement, Judge Falala said. Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Martinez stood, a 15-year veteran prosecutor known for her methodical approach to complex white-collar cases. Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about betrayal. It's about fraud. It's about greed. And it's about a young woman who convinced America she was different. That she rejected the corruption of politics while secretly becoming exactly what she claimed to oppose. Martinez walked to a large display showing the timeline. In 2018, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ran for Congress with a compelling story. She was a bartender from the Bronx. She had student loan debt. She represented working people. She promised to reject corporate money and fight corruption, and America believed her. Young people especially believed her. She became a political phenomenon. Martinez pointed to the timeline. But that story was a lie. And over the next 6 weeks, we're going to prove it with documents, bank records, audio recordings, emails, and the testimony of witnesses who worked for the defendant and watched her commit crimes. She pulled up images of shell company registration documents. The defendant created a network of fake companies, shell companies, to hide money flows. She accepted illegal campaign contributions funneled through stolen identities. She used 847 different victims' names, real people whose identities were stolen, to disguise the true sources of her campaign funding. Martinez pulled up the ACT Blue donation records. She raised millions of dollars through fraud. And when questioned about her small dollar grassroots fundraising, she lied. She knew the donations were fake. We have audio recordings of her telling her campaign manager to keep the money flowing and saying she didn't care how as long as they had enough to win. The prosecutor moved to photos of AOC's DC condo. The defendant bought a $1.8 million condominium in Washington, D.C. How does a bartender afford that? The answer is she stole it. She moved political money through her fake companies into her personal accounts and used that money to buy real estate. That's money laundering. Martinez pulled up stock trading records. The defendant sits on committees that receive classified briefings about the economy, about regulations, about government actions that affect stock prices. And she used that information she learned as a member of Congress to make stock trades that generated $1.4 million in profits. 2 days after a classified COVID briefing, she bought pharmaceutical stock options. Days after a classified cryptocurrency regulation briefing, she shorted crypto exchanges. That's insider trading. That's securities fraud. The prosecutor's voice hardened, and when she learned the FBI was investigating, she tried to cover it up. She deleted 471,128 emails. She instructed others to destroy evidence. She contacted witnesses and tried to coordinate false testimony. She lied to FBI agents. That's obstruction of justice. Martinez walked back to face the jury directly. Over the next 6 weeks, you're going to hear from former staff members who watched the defendant commit these crimes. You're going to see bank records proving the money flows. You're going to hear audio recordings of the defendant instructing others to break the law. You're going to see emails where she explicitly used classified information to make stock trades. She paused for effect. And at the end of this trial, we're going to ask you to do something that might be difficult. Hold a member of Congress accountable for her crimes. The defendant thought she was above the law. She thought her political brand would protect her. She was wrong. Martinez returned to her seat. Thank you. Judge Fifila looked to the defense table. Mr. Garrigus, your opening statement. Mark Garrigus stood, a legendary defense attorney known for representing high-profile clients. He exuded confidence as he approached the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, the government just spent 20 minutes telling you about crimes. But here's what they didn't tell you. My client, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is not a criminal. She's a young woman who won an election against impossible odds and then got caught up in a political system that's designed to destroy anyone who threatens the establishment. Garrigus walked along the jury box, making eye contact with each juror. Is Alex perfect? No. Did she make mistakes? Probably. Did some people around her make questionable decisions? Possibly. But making mistakes is not a crime. And the government is going to have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Alex knowingly and intentionally committed each and every crime they've charged. He pointed back at the prosecution table. They're going to show you complicated financial records and shell companies. But here's the truth. Alex is not a financial expert. She relied on campaign professionals, accountants, and consultants to handle those matters. When they told her something was legal, she believed them. That's not a crime. That's trusting the experts. Garrigus pulled up a photo of AOC from her 2018 campaign. Young, energetic, idealistic, this woman threatened the political establishment. She beat a 10-term incumbent in a primary. She challenged the way politics works in Washington. And now the establishment is using the FBI to destroy her. This prosecution is political persecution. He walked back to the center of the courtroom. The government is going to show you audio recordings taken out of context. They're going to show you emails that seem damning but actually have innocent explanations. They're going to parade witnesses who were offered immunity deals. People who are saying what the government wants them to say to avoid prison themselves. Garajos's voice rose with passion. But at the end of this trial, you're going to see that the government has not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. You're going to see that Alex Ocasio-Cortez is being prosecuted because she dared to challenge the system. And you're going to render the only verdict that justice demands. Not guilty. He returned to his seat. The battle lines were drawn. The prosecution's case unfolded over 3 weeks with devastating precision. Week 1. The campaign finance fraud. The government called Jessica Martinez, AOC's former campaign finance coordinator, as their first witness. Ms. Martinez, Asa Sarah Martinez began. Did there come a time when you became aware that ACTB Blue donations to Representative Ocasio-Cortez's campaign were fraudulent? Jessica nodded, her voice trembling slightly. Yes. In May 2018, I noticed patterns that seemed wrong. Multiple donations from the same IP address, but different names. Donations from addresses that didn't match voter registration records. When I brought it up with the campaign manager, he told me not to worry about it. Did you ever discuss these concerns with the defendant directly? Yes. In June 2018, I told Alex Representative Ocasio-Cortez that I thought some of the donations might be fake. She told me. Jessica paused, clearly uncomfortable. What did she tell you? She said, the money is flowing. Don't stop the flow. We need every dollar to win this race. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. The jury leaned forward. On cross-examination, Garagos attacked. You received immunity from prosecution in exchange for your testimony. Correct. Yes. So, you had every incentive to tell the government what they wanted to hear. Correct. I'm telling the truth about what happened. But you were facing potential prison time yourself, weren't you? For your role in the campaign finance fraud. I made mistakes. But Alex knew what was happening. She directed it. The government then called FBI forensic accountant Michael Chen, who spent 2 full days walking the jury through the money flows. Shell companies, wire transfers, fake donors, all connected back to AOC's campaigns. The exhibits were overwhelming. Wire transfer records, bank account ownership documents, corporate formation papers, donor lists with fake addresses, IP address logs showing donations from single sources in my 20 years as a forensic accountant. Chen testified, I've never seen a more sophisticated small-dollar donation laundering scheme. The defendants' campaigns received $43 million in illegal contributions disguised as grassroots donations. Week 2. The insider trading. The government called Riley Roberts AOC's boyfriend who had accepted immunity in exchange for his testimony. Riley looked miserable on the stand. He clearly didn't want to be there. Mr. Roberts, the prosecutor began, did Representative Ocasio-Cortez ever provide you with information from classified congressional briefings that you then used to make stock trades? Riley's voice was barely audible. Yes. Can you give the jury an example? In February 2020, Alex came home from a classified briefing about COVID-19. She told me it was going to be much worse than the public knew. She told me to buy pharmaceutical stocks and short airlines. I did. We made over $400. Did she tell you this information was classified? She said, don't tell anyone where you heard this. This briefing was classified. And did you understand that trading on that information was illegal? Riley paused. Yes. I knew it was wrong. But Alex said everyone in Congress does it. She said it was a victimless crime. The prosecution then played the emails. The ones where AOC explicitly told Riley to make trades based on classified information. Got some info from the COVID briefing today. This is going to be bigger than anyone realizes. Buy pharma calls. Sell airlines. Do it tomorrow. Don't wait. The jury heard AOC's own words directing illegal trades. On cross-examination, Garagos tried to create doubt. Mr. Roberts, you loved Alexandria, didn't you? Yes. And she broke up with you when she found out you were cooperating with the FBI. Correct. Yes. So, you're angry at her? You want revenge? Riley looked up, tears in his eyes. I'm angry at myself. I loved her and she used me to commit crimes. Then she threw me away to save herself. Week 3. The cover-up. The government's star witness was AOC's former chief of staff, Sayakat Chakrabarti, who had also received immunity. Chakrabarti testified about the mass email deletion, the witness tampering the coordinated false statements. He described meetings where AOC explicitly instructed staff to get rid of evidence and to align our stories before FBI interviews. Did you believe what you were doing was legal? The prosecutor asked. No, I knew we were obstructing justice. I knew we were destroying evidence. But Alex said if we didn't, we'd all go to prison. She said the FBI wouldn't be able to prove anything without the emails. The prosecution then played the audio recording, the one from the August 27 meeting at AOC's condo, where she explicitly told staff to coordinate our stories. The jury heard AOC's voice. If people made mistakes with donations, that was their initiative, not mine. You need to understand that distinction. We all need to have accurate memories about what I did and didn't know. Even some of AOC's supporters in the courtroom gallery looked uncomfortable. The defense case. Garagos put on a defense, but it was weak. He called character witnesses people who knew AOC as a caring, principled person. He called expert witnesses who testified about the complexities of campaign finance law and how someone could innocently violate technical regulations. But he couldn't explain away the audio recordings. He couldn't explain away the explicit emails. He couldn't explain the shell companies, the deleted evidence, or the witness tampering. And critically, Garagos made the decision not to put AOC on the stand. The risk was too great. The prosecution would eviscerate her on cross-examination. Closing arguments. AUSA Martinez was clinical in her closing. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not complicated. The defendant committed fraud. She stole from the American people. She profited from her position. She destroyed evidence. And she tried to blame everyone but herself. Martinez pointed to the mountain of evidence. You've seen the bank records. You've heard the audio recordings. You've read the emails. You've heard testimony from people who worked for her and watched her commit these crimes. The evidence is overwhelming. The defendant is guilty. And your verdict should reflect that truth. Garagos's closing was emotional but unpersuasive. The government wants you to believe that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a criminal mastermind. But look at her. She's 35 years old. She was a bartender 3 years before she got elected. Does she look like a criminal mastermind? Or does she look like a young woman who got in over her head? But the jury had seen too much evidence. After 7 days of deliberation, the jury sent word that they'd reached a verdict. The courtroom packed with reporters, spectators, and sitting in the gallery, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, who'd traveled from Washington to witness the conclusion of the investigation he'd led. Judge Fail entered. As the jury reached a verdict, the jury for person stood. We have your honor. On count 1, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. How do you find? We find the defendant guilty. AOC's shoulders slumped. On count 2, wire fraud. Guilty. Count 3, guilty. It continued for nearly 20 minutes. The jury convicted AOC on 73 of 78 counts. Guilty on all campaign finance fraud charges. Guilty on all money laundering charges. Guilty on all tax evasion charges. Guilty on 21 of 23 insider trading charges. They had reasonable doubt on 2 trades. Guilty on all obstruction charges. Guilty on all witness tampering charges. Guilty on all false statement charges. When the 4-person finished, AOC was crying openly, her face in her hands. The defendant is remanded to custody pending sentencing. Judge Fail ordered. Sentencing is scheduled for June 15, 2025. U.S. Marshals handcuffed AOC and led her from the courtroom. The transformation was complete from progressive icon to convicted felon. June 15, 2025. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stood before Judge Filla for the final time wearing an orange prison jumpsuit. She'd been held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn for 3 months, awaiting sentencing. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. Judge Fail began. You've been convicted of 73 counts of federal crimes. Before I impose sentence, do you wish to address the court? AOC's attorney had advised her to show remorse. She stood, her voice shaking. Your Honor, I want to apologize. I made terrible mistakes. I got caught up in the pressure of politics. I let down everyone who believed in me. I betrayed the people I promised to represent. I'm deeply sorry. But Judge Fail had read the pre-sentence investigation report. She knew AOC had shown no remorse until after conviction. She knew AOC had tried to blame everyone else until the evidence became overwhelming. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, the judge said, her voice cold, you stood before America and promised to be different. You condemned corruption. You condemned politicians who sold out to wealthy interests. And then you became exactly what you claimed to oppose. The judge reviewed the evidence. You defrauded the Federal Election Commission with $4.3 million in illegal contributions. You evaded $470 in federal taxes. You engaged in insider trading that generated $1.40 million in illegal profits. You laundered money through shell companies. You destroyed evidence. You tampered with witnesses. You lied to federal investigators. Judge Fila looked directly at AOC. You betrayed every person who believed in you. You validated every negative stereotype about politicians. You proved that your entire brand was a lie. You were not a working-class champion. You were a fraud. She reviewed the sentencing guidelines. The guidelines suggest 20-25 years. The government has requested 30 years. Your attorneys have requested leniency based on your age and lack of prior criminal history. Judge Fightfiler paused. This court finds that a substantial sentence is necessary. Your crimes were calculated, deliberate, and sustained over years. You showed no remorse until after conviction. You have accepted no real responsibility. This court sentences you as follows: 15 years on the campaign finance fraud charges, 8 years on the money laundering charges to run consecutively, 5 years on the tax evasion charges to run consecutively, 10 years on the insider trading charges to run consecutively, 5 years on the obstruction charges to run consecutively. Total sentence 43 years in federal prison. You will serve at least 85% of this sentence before parole eligibility. Approximately 37 years. You will be 72 years old before you're eligible for release. AOC collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Additionally, you will forfeit all assets obtained through your criminal conduct. $3.2 million in accounts, property, and securities. You will pay $470 in restitution to the IRS. You will be permanently barred from holding federal office. Judge Fila looked at the U.S. Marshals. The defendant is remanded to the custody of the Bureau of Prisons. She will be designated to FCI Danbury, a low-security federal prison for women. Bailiff, please remove the defendant. As marshals led AOC from the courtroom. For the last time, she glanced back at the gallery, at the reporters, at the spectators, at the FBI agents who'd investigated her. Dan Bongino sat in the back row, his face impassive. He'd done his job. Justice had been served for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. AOC is currently serving her 43-year sentence at FCI Danbury in Connecticut. Her prison number is 47,382 I-4. Her earliest possible release date is May 2062, when she'll be 72 years old. Her appeals have been denied at every level. The Second Circuit upheld her conviction. The Supreme Court declined to hear her case. She shares a cell with 2 other inmates. She works in the prison kitchen for $0. She's allowed limited phone calls and email access through the prison's True Lens system. Her boyfriend Riley Roberts never visited. Her mother visits once a month. The progressive movement that rallied behind her initially has largely moved on. Some supporters claim she was politically persecuted. Most have accepted that the evidence was overwhelming. She'll be in prison for the rest of her productive adult life. For Dan Bongino, FBI Deputy Director Bongino held a single press conference after the sentencing. This investigation was about evidence, not politics. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez committed serious federal crimes: campaign finance fraud, insider trading, tax evasion, obstruction of justice. The FBI collected evidence, presented it to prosecutors, and a jury of her peers found her guilty. That's how the justice system works. If a Republican member of Congress committed the same crimes, I would investigate with equal vigor. The FBI doesn't care about party affiliation. We care about conduct. And Ms. Ocasio-Cortez's conduct was criminal. That's all I have to say. His approval ratings remained extraordinarily high. Overall 68% Republicans, 91% Independents, 64% Democrats, 39%. Bongino continued serving as FBI deputy director focusing on public corruption cases. 3 other members of Congress were subsequently indicted based on evidence uncovered during the AOC investigation. For Congress, the House passed the Congressional Accountability and Anti-Corruption Act with overwhelming bipartisan support. Mandatory real-time disclosure of all stock trades by members. Prohibition on members trading individual stocks. Only index funds allowed. Quarterly audits of member-controlled entities and PACs. Enhanced financial disclosure requirements. Automatic ethics reviews for suspicious financial activity. Mandatory training on campaign finance laws. Immediate suspension upon indictment for corruption offenses. Automatic expulsion upon conviction. The Senate passed a companion bill. AOC's case became the definitive example of congressional corruption in the modern era. Law schools study it. The FBI Academy uses it for training. Political science courses analyze what went wrong. For America, the lesson was clear. No matter who you are, no matter how popular you become, no matter what political brand you build, if you commit crimes, you will be caught, and if the evidence is overwhelming, you will be convicted and you will go to prison. Final scene. 2 years later, Dan Bongino sat in his FBI office reviewing files for another corruption investigation. Another member of Congress. More suspicious stock trades. More shell companies. The work never ended. His phone rang. It was his former NYPD partner. Now retired. Danny, did you see the news? AOC got denied parole at her 2-year review. She's not eligible for parole for 35 more years. Bongino replied. This was her first review. It was automatic. She was never going to get out. You know, she still claims she's innocent. Still says she was set up. Bongino smiled slightly. They always do. But 3 different federal judges reviewed the case on appeal. All upheld the conviction. The evidence was overwhelming. You did good work on that case. I did my job. Same job I did on the street in Queens 20 years ago. Catch criminals. Present evidence. Let juries decide. Think Congress learned anything? Bongino looked at the files on his desk. 2 senators and another representative under investigation for similar schemes. Some learned, others didn't, but that's why we exist. To catch the ones who didn't learn. He hung up and returned to his work. Because in Washington, D.C., corruption never sleeps, but neither does the cop.